It's certainly sweltering hot, and that ain't just in Portugal. Pre-season is well underway for Mansfield Town, with 3 wins from their first 3 pre-season games. But do those victories really matter? No, they do not. Why? Because it's minutes that matter. Minutes in the legs, minutes in the tank, whatever footballing phrase you want to use. Preparations are well underway for the Sky Bet League One campaign, and tonight we talk all about it. Pre-season so far, everything from the Quinn connection to point systems and beyond. Come and have your say on your team on the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Matters Podcast. It's the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. It's great to be back with you again. If you joined us a few weeks ago for our sort of like little warm-up episode and thought, do you know what? I was left wanting a little bit more like the proverbial Oliver Twist. Well, tonight you are going to get more and then some, because I've got a whole range of Mansfield Town supporters joining me on the panel tonight. And of course, if this is the first time you've ever joined us, you can join in the show as well and have your say on your team. All you've got to do is get in the comments and just leave a comment. Any comment, question, opinion on all things Mansfield Town. We'll read it out if we spot it, and we'll talk all about it. It's for us to discuss, and it's for you to discuss as well. Right, let's meet our band of merry men who are joining us to talk all things Mansfield Town tonight. Let's introduce them one by one, and first of all and foremost, say hello and good evening to the man who was spotted on his holidays. It's Mr. Clive Parkin.
Good evening, Craig. Hello, everybody.
And let's say hello and good evening to a man that was spotted in a McDonald's. It's Nick of Mansfield Town Shirts fame.
Hello.
And let's say hello and good evening to the man who can now print off his squad list for next season. It's Mr. Alan Wilson. Good evening, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
And we will have on the old mobile blower in a little while, we'll have Jim as well joining us. I've just got to press dial. Nick, you might want to log out and then log back in, because for some reason you've gone really, really pixelated and your signal seems to have dropped. I think the hot weather has affected absolutely everybody. So Nick might just log out and log back in, and we'll get Jim on the phone in a minute and say hello and good evening. Lots to talk about tonight, chaps. Of course, you two were with me a couple of weeks ago. How are you finding pre-season so far, Clive?
Difficult to analyse, really. I think, as the title of this piece suggests, it's all about minutes. It's not about results or even performances, in that matter. I don't think the scores that we've achieved so far mean a great deal, but I think it's. I have to say, I'm impressed by the build-up that the club is, fairly carefully putting together.
Well, let's see if we can be joined. Oh, no, he's put the phone down on me. We'll try him again. Alan, how are you finding pre-season so far?
All right, Craig, it's not been too bad at all. We've had a couple of additions and they've looked quite steady. I like the looks of Mr. Tracy at left back, and Quinn's nephew been a bit of a revelation.
Can you hear us, Jim?
I can hear you. Hi, everybody.
Hey!
There he is. For whatever
Evening,
reason,
Jim.
tonight, for whatever reason tonight, Jim, technology is not on our side. I think the sun has definitely got it. I think you were lagging so far behind. I think you logged on to join the first episode of the series 2 weeks ago, and Nick seems to just be consumed by his shirts and seems to have seemingly disappeared. So I'm not quite sure what's going on tonight, but we'll grin and bear it. I think we might be having a few issues with Restream as well, because started having a little bit of armor. So we'll muddle on through it. If you are watching at home on either Facebook or on YouTube, please do drop us a comment and say hello. We would love to hear from you tonight. We were just hearing there, Jim, about pre-season from Alan and Clive. What have you made of pre-season early doors so far?
Observations are we seem to be picking up a lot of injuries again. quickly already. They seem to be going down like flies already. I like the look of the new signings, particularly the left-sided lad, Fraser Blake Tracy, and the midfield lads. They look useful. And 3 good wins. The same players doing the same old things, but yeah, I still think we're 2 or 3 short recruitment-wise.
Yeah, we sort of looked into the recruitment that we've made so far in the last show, Clive, and one thing we sort of said, we'd signed 4 so far. We did feel a little bit short, and having looked at the pre-season games so far and the lineups, one thing that's concerning me for sure is the fact that we seem to have a lack of right backs. Lucas Akins has played there in every pre-season friendly so far. The main right backs we've got, of course, are George Williams, who's heavily injury prone, and Elliot Hewitt, whose recovery seems to be taking a little bit longer than first anticipated. I think before that is season opener in a couple of weeks' time, we need to be in the market for a right back, don't we?
We needed another right back last season, never mind this season. But yes, it's become apparent that that's the weakest part of our resource. And you've only got to have one of the all-rounders get taken away from us and we've got a problem.
Well, let's see if we can say hello and good evening to Nick of Mansfield Town Shirts fame at last. There he is. Hi, Nick.
Hello, I am here. Yeah, I don't know what was going off there with the old interweb. No idea, but I am here.
I genuinely think that it's a combination of the weather and Restream having a little bit of a marmar. So viewers will know that you used to be able to watch this, and listeners will know you used to be able to watch this on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, aka X. You can't watch it on Twitter anymore because Elon Musk's decided to try and cash in, but he ain't getting my cash. So there you go. We've got Jim on the phone as well now, Nick, as well. So there's a full contingent. We were just talking about pre-season in general so far. What have you made of it in brief?
I only went to been to the Hucknall game, but yeah, I think they've looked really sharp. I think that no one's, apart from Maris, obviously a bit disappointed getting injured, but I really like the look of Ben Quinn. I think he looks a fantastic player. If we can get him signed up, it'd be nice. But I mean, it's just about minutes and not getting injured, isn't it? Fitness, and everyone looks sharp, and they all look, from the photos we've seen, they all look in really good shape, and they're all up for it. And the team dynamic still looks to be there, despite bringing a few players in. So yeah, apart from the Maris injury, I don't think we can particularly complain.
And in terms of what we've seen so far, in terms of what we're lacking, we had a look in the last episode at the 4 signings that we've made so far. Lucas Akins, Nick, has played right back predominantly in pre-season, in all the pre-season games thus far. We're desperately short of right back transfer market, aren't we?
Yeah, I think defenders. I mean, Clough said in his interview that we were lacking up front, which I thought was quite interesting, and that's where he was focusing for maybe the loan. But I think we're more lacking in defence, especially when you look at cover. I know Kilgore's coming back and Hewitt's coming back, but yeah, we don't really want Akins playing at right back in League One every week. It's all right as an option, but we don't want him to start there. So I think defence, maybe a couple of defenders rather than a couple of attackers would be my preference, because the likes of Akins and Bowery, etc., can always go up front. I'd rather have that cover in defence, I think.
Yeah, Nick mentions Bowery there, Alan. Of course, he's another option in the right back slots. But I was having this conversation with someone at work today in the office, and as versatile as Jordan Bowery is he really the League One standard that we need? Is he the answer for us in that position, or is that an area where we could sort of, when people ask what's your weak areas, is that where we're going to get caught out a little bit? Do you feel?
I think time will tell on that one, Craig, because I don't want to, cast aspersions about Mr. Barry, whether he's good enough for League One. Or, that will remain to be seen, I think. But I'm just wondering, with Akins being at right back, I'm wondering if that is a proposition. For this season, we've got Gregory, there's Ben Quinn, there's Will Swan, there's quite a few, Mr. Nichols. I'm wondering if he's going to be penciled in there as either a cover or maybe, who knows? I hope not.
Do you think that's in Clough's mindset, Clive? Potentially looking at taking Bowery out of the taking Akins out of the strikers column, Akins in the defence column, as he has done with Mr. Bowery?
Yes, absolutely. I don't agree with it. Again, it's a bit of square pegs and round holes, in my opinion, but credit where it's due. Both of them are adaptable and physically fit, and they give everything. So, but I'm not sure they're the right standard for what's in front of us.
Jim, what do you make of that? Would you be happy to not sign a right back, sign a striker instead, and move Lucas Akins back into the defenders column?
No. He looks all right against Uphill Town, but like Clive just said, I think we'll come up against some gun players at our standard, who will tear Lucas Akins to shreds, God bless him. He can't turn very quickly, and I think against certain players, he'll really get exposed. No, I agree with Nick. I think the emphasis should be on getting some defensive cover. I would really highlight that. I think we'd have enough up front, even if we went with what we got. I think defence, we need to get some reinforcements.
I just feel, Nick, that it's an area where we are a little bit. Yes, we've got the numbers in there, but if you look at the treatment table, Alfie Kilgore, Elliot Hewitt, both there. George Williams is relatively injury prone as well. Obviously, you got Stephen McLaughlin, Fraser Blake Tracy, Callum McDonald, but we haven't really got an established, experienced League One player other than Aidan Flint in that position.
Yeah, I think a little bit more experience at the back would be nice. No issue with Byron Akins filling in where they need to, but I don't think they can be relied upon. We're talking about Stricey. Adam there's mentioned about just having Gregory and Nichols. We have got Swan. He tended to actually only play really one out-and-out striker last year because Keeler Dunn tended to play more up front with him. So actually, you're only really, in most games, maybe even going to need one up front. So we don't need, I don't think, 6-7 attackers. I think we just need to concentrate on keeping the goals out, which we proved last season. We have got a bit of a spark, and certain players will do a bit of magic to get us a goal, but we can't be conceding goals left, right, and centre. Waiting for Kilgore to come back. We don't know what state he's going to be in. We don't want the likes of Maka and Bowery playing centre back against. You look at Birmingham and what they've spent. I don't know how many million they've spent, but I imagine they've probably got better attackers than we faced last season. So we need to up it a little bit.
Yeah, there is going to be a little bit of a gulf, Clive, when we step into League One. And I think we'd be quite naive to not consider making suitable adjustments to do that, to cope with it.
I think we're going to have our work cut out this year, and that's no surprise. I mean, we're a team that's come up from below, and we've got some decent players. I don't know how decent they are compared to really good first division players. As Alan says, we're going to have to wait and find out on that one. But I think Ben Quinn, if he's signed, if we take him on, how would you categorise him, as a striker or a midfield player?
Well, for me, I think you've got him as part of the forward line. I think he's a good striker, can play anywhere across that forward line. Preferably for me, it would be on the right hand side of it to cut in on his left foot. But he just gives us a bit of an option. And, he's obviously got good pedigree. And I think, Alan, talking about Quinn, I don't see a world in which he won't be a Mansfield Town player next season. Putting aside his performances in pre-season so far, because obviously, without being too disrespectful, the level you can't really tell against. But I don't think Nigel Clough would have let James Gale go out on loan to Solihull without having that backup plan. And I think that plan is probably Ben Quinn.
Now, two things. I agree with that, Craig, to a certain extent. We've got Quinn, and like I say, like you said, he wouldn't have gone to Portugal either if he didn't like his left Woods back in home. But also we've got Fraser Blake Tracy, who can play centre half. And if Macca's come in like he's resurging again, it seems to be all gung-ho again this year. He's got 2 goals. I know the opposition's not quite there, but he's seemed to be quite creditable. He's had the armband as well. So who knows? It might be Macca and Quinny down the line with young Ben Quinn just in front of them two. That would be nice.
It's been 15 minutes so far, Jim, and I'm yet to do my Uncle Stephen voice. Am I doing well?
Stephen? Oh, yeah, they're doing well. I'm sure around the corner, though.
Oh, yeah, it will come up at some point in this podcast, don't worry. What have you made of little Quinn, Nick, so far? Obviously, I think personally it's probably part of Quinn. Uncle Stephen, as Stephen Quinn shall be referred to on this podcast from now on until eternity. I think it was probably part of his negotiation. I'll give you another year, but you've got to give me nephew a trial.
If it's as good as him, you can be anyone. Nieces, nephews, aunties, uncles, grandparents. I'm not bothered if they're as good as him. The dog, I'm not bothered if he's got a dog. But I thought they linked up really well. I know it's just, it's Hucknall Town, but you can only play against what you're up against. The grass was awfully long and they were struggling to get the ball moving. But I thought the two Quinns had an understanding, which you'd think they should do.
Yeah.
But you've got to make the most of that. We all know that partnerships, Quinn and McLaughlin almost got us to Wembley on their own at times. If we've got another Quinn and Quinn, senior, junior, why not make the most of it? And if we can sign him up, and I thought he actually looked really good on the left-hand side. I tend to agree with you normally, Craig, with left footers, but I thought against Hucknall, his movement with Quinn, they seemed to understand where each other was going to be. And like I say, it is Hucknall. We could probably give him a good game between the five of us, but I thought the movement was fantastic from him, and that's all you can judge him against is what we've seen. And compared to even the likes, I thought he looked a lot sharper than Gregory, McWoods, and a few others that played. I thought he stood out in probably all three games as the sharpest.
Yeah, I would completely agree with every word you've said there. However, I must pull you up on a slight Mansfield Matters rule change for this season. Cannot refer to Stephen Quinn as Quinn.
He's Uncle Stephen.
Uncle Stephen. Clive, obviously, it runs in the bloodline. Uncle Stephen would have been playing football with young Quinn, or Quinn the younger, Ben, for his entire life. So that understanding is bound to be there. And, he's got good, without the connection, taking that aside, Ben on his own has obviously got a good established career. I know he was highly thought of when he was at Celtic.
Yeah, I've been impressed by Quinnett. I think he's got a turn of pace. He knows where to be in the right place. He's got the confidence to take people on and then go for a shot. You don't want much more from an attacking midfielder than that.
Yeah, you certainly don't. And Jim, what have you made of him so far? Because obviously there's a lot of hype around him due to the Uncle Stephen connection, but also there's a lot of hype because he scored, a couple of goals in pre-season so far. He's been on target in every single game thus far.
He's obviously got potential. I still think he looks a bit raw. I mean, he's come from Celtic, so they wouldn't just have anybody, would they? So he's obviously not a muppet, and he showed flashes. But I think, as I say, I still think a bit like Gale was a little bit, or still is. He's a little bit raw, and going into League One, I'm not sure he's ready for that level. If I'm brutally honest, I think he could be that level eventually, but I still think he's not, in my opinion, the answer. Like coming against some of the games we're going to be playing.
It's an interesting one to work out because, Alan, you never really know what the answer is. I don't think there is ever an answer in football, and you have to bring young players on at some point. I would say, though, at this point in their careers, in terms of going into a League One campaign, I think, looking what I've seen so far and having done a bit of research and watched a few other clips of Quinn the younger, I think at this stage in terms of development, I would rather have Quinn the younger playing for Mansfield in League One whilst James Gale's bubbling away and developing in the National League.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well, Craig, 100%, because it does look lively, but I think Gale will come good. He's shown flashes. I mean, we all saw what he did at MK Dons with that goal. Unbelievable. So I think his time will come. But obviously, Uncle Stephen's nephew, I mean, they've been playing on the back garden together. They've got a fantastic understanding. So, let's hope it brings fruitful points, shall we say.
2 points to pick up on, Nick, from the comment. The first is from Adam, who says, Quinn the younger doesn't count in terms of squad numbers registration because he falls under the under 21 mark, so he doesn't count as a squad place, which is good for us. And then the second point is from Ben, who says not Ben Quinn, by the way, who says realistically he's not going to start every game, but he's a great option from the bench.
Yeah, 100%. That rawness sometimes can work to your advantage because they're just different, aren't they? Players, and see that they've got confidence. You look at Will Swan, and he doesn't look very confident. Even in pre-season, he started to come good towards the end of last season, but he seems to have taken a knock again. He didn't look particularly very confident, I didn't think, in the games I've seen him play. And you just need a bit of confidence. And young lad, he's playing with a relative in the same team, and it must be if he does get the chance, sure he'll take it and certainly give it the best and give it his all. And that's all you can ask for. His effort, isn't it? And running around and throwing yourself at it and getting. He's not going to score 20 goals, is he? That's what we want Gregory to do. But I think he'd be a brilliant option. Like Adam says, he's under 21, doesn't count in the squad numbers. So what have you got to lose? Keeps t'other Quinn happy. Uncle Stephen keeps him happy. So yeah, why not? Have a look at the family tree, see what else we can dig out.
Maybe there's some sort of distant cousin somewhere. Maybe hiding where get a trio with Quinns in Clive, and maybe we'll have a spine of the team as Quinns. We'll have Quinn in goal. At some point we're aiming for the Quinn 11. Quinn in goal.
No. If you get five, you've got a quintet.
No, that's no.
You've been. I don't know how long you've been waiting for that, Clive.
He's been waiting for that game. I mean, I'm still trying to work out whether he's right or not.
Yeah.
50 years ago.
Can I just say that we've seen precious
Yeah,
little of any of these players so far. We've seen a few minutes for all the players. I mean, if you judged them what we've seen so far, you'd send Lee Gregory back because he's done nothing in the minutes he's had. But it's unfair to judge on that basis. We know the man's got experience and talent. He may well not be as sharp as he ultimately will be by the time the season kicks off. We just have to wait and see. I don't think the game against Chelsea under-21s, who looked remarkably like under-16s to me, proved a great deal. Macca's goal was something remarkable. I don't know what the keeper was doing. Was he playing there? Was their keeper playing centre forward for them at that point? But I just think that the boot camp in the hot climes of Portugal is a good thing to get the fitness right and get the disciplines going. I think next weekend and the games that follow that are going to be the acid test of whether we've got enough quality in the team.
Yeah, we'll come on to those later on. Jim, I want to go back to that Chelsea under-21 game for a second and talk about that a little bit more. It's not necessarily about playing the opposition. It's about what the opposition can do. Nigel Clough sort of said it in his interview after. They are very schooled in a very different way. They'll try and press high up the pitch. We'll have longer spells off the ball, which we're going to get in League One this season. I think the exercise, not only in terms of in terms of the heat and the duration and that sort of having to concentrate a little bit more and sort of be on it when you're off the ball, but also how you work as a unit off the ball. And I think judging by what we've seen so far, the plan from Nigel Clough this season is to line up how we've been lining up, but to try and press teams and not give them as much time. Would you say that's a fair reflection of what he wanted to get out of the trip to Portugal?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we won the game. So I think I've seen Macca's interview afterwards. He said they were young, they were fit, they were fast, but we've lived with them and we've beat them ultimately. And Macca's goal was a result of pressing, wasn't it? So I'm sure it is what he wants to do. Well, I think full tilt club football is an emphasis on pressing, especially when people like Oates is fit. And I think the players he's brought like Bacchus and obviously larger, they'll press and they'll be athletic. I think we're not going to beat teams on skill, every week. I think you have to sort of bring other attributes to the table, and pressing is something that you can do without talent necessarily. I'm sure very much that will be, and physicality will definitely be an order of the day, definitely.
Let's continue the chat about Portugal, Nick, and obviously looking at this training camp. Typically under Nigel Clough, I think probably because of the effects of COVID, we've gone up for a week in Scotland. This is the first time we've been out in Portugal since I think the Dempster era, whichever way you want to look at it. What does a training camp do for like that in the heat? Do for the players in terms of fitness levels, all of that sort of stuff, and of course getting the team together as a unit, because we've had to integrate 4 new players into the squad, albeit one of them hasn't travelled. We'll come on to that in a minute.
Yeah, it's probably more for bonding, isn't it? I think apart from Bacchus, I think everyone the other signings seemed to already know players. Obviously, Gregory knew Flint and Blake Tracy knew a few others, and Oshie Larger knew obviously the Burton guy. So probably didn't take much integration, but I imagine it's just about getting to know each other and spending time, just in a small group. And imagine the hot weather training. I'm not an expert. I don't do a lot myself of hot weather training other than laying down. But I imagine that, it can't be bad for your fitness. It's got to be doing 2 sessions a day or whatever they've been doing by the looks of it. I mean, they all look fit, don't they? Let's be honest. Gone are the days of when Mansfield footballers return looking like, Dave from the pub. Doesn't really happen anymore, does it? So they all look really fit. I thought the interesting with having the microphones on Pim and Colin, I thought that was quite interesting, something a bit different to see behind the scenes as well. So, they all, to be fair, some of them looking, I mean, I think it was Wowchop, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, or maybe wrong. He looked like he was an absolute beast. Some of the young lads are big lads now. when the days of young lads coming through and looking like young lads, I couldn't work out who he was at first, but there seemed to be a lot of them seem to be in very good shape, ready for the season. I suppose that's all this camp is supposed to do, isn't it? It's just heighten the fitness and hopefully stop any injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about managing, knocks and niggles as well, Alan, isn't it? I mean, George Maris got injured in that friendly against Leicester, which is obviously disappointing. He's going to miss the start of the season. We're not quite sure what the full diagnosis is, but we know he's out for the start of the season, which is a bit of a blow. Christy Pym's not played the last couple of games. I think he's had a bit of an issue with his back. And what Nigel Clough is very much doing is, there's no need to go hell for leather in pre-season. It's about managing people in the right way, and I think he's doing that very, very well. Albeit it might be causing a few people to think he played. So he's obviously off.
Yeah, but I was saying it'll be interesting, especially with like one of the comments said about Bacchus. I think he could be the new Ollie Clark. Grit, determination, not frightened of a yellow card. I'm really looking forward to seeing him when it turns out, in the party.
Well, if Nathan Edge was on the podcast tonight, he would have responded immediately to that by saying, "What, shall we push him off a cliff?" But you can't do that because he would bounce straight back because, of course, boomerang in his blood. That is an Australian reference, a joke which probably fell on deaf ears. Right, moving swiftly on. Let's go. Let's just have a little continuation of that conversation. Obviously, Keanu Bacchus hasn't travelled, Clive, to the Portugal training camp. He has obviously done a lot of travelling in the summer. He was on international duty for a while as well, and he's got to move down from Scotland to Mansfield. So he's been left at home on purpose by Nigel Clough to get all of his affairs in order to make sure he's settled and ready for the season. That is top-tier management.
Absolute wisdom. You don't want a player anxious about his circumstances and his family's circumstances, especially when you're plying your trade the other side of the world from your roots. I think he needs to be happy in himself, and that means settling down before we start the rigours of the season. And if that means he starts a couple of weeks behind the training regime with the rest of the squad, then I think that's a price worth paying.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, let's continue talking about Keanu Bacchus. Obviously, we were talking about big game players, and earlier on we were talking about moving a few people around. Even with George Maris sort of injured, which is a little bit of a downer, Keanu Bacchus does give us a little bit of that attacking option. And we've seen glimpses of what he can do so far. It'd be interesting to see, like Clive says, what he can do when he's properly mentally settled, because that is as important as being physically ready, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. And I think 80% of sport, as in life, is in the head, isn't it? So, yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, I think he looks good. I think he's more attacking than I thought he was. When he came, he was sort of billed as a sort of box-to-box, well, just more central midfielder. But he looked more attacking to me against Hucknall. But he looks sharp and good on the ball. He can run. I think on the passing attributes that we were on about 5 minutes ago, I think he'll be good at that dimension of things. And yeah, looks quality addition.
We've got a Darlington fan who's watching the live stream tonight, so we'll give him a quick shout out. So good evening to Ian. He says, "I'm a Darlo." Going off in the background. Was that you, Jim?
No, not me.
I'm going to say Alan Wilson. So it sounded like a Sutton and Ashfield rally car. Yes, Ian says, "Hi everyone watching. I'm a Darlington fan. We were made bankrupt in 2011, reformed in 2012. 4 leagues. We're currently a fan-owned National League North club. We've got 3 promotions. Good luck for the season. Which of you 4 were at Wembley in May 2011 for the FA Trophy final? I was, as Darlington fan, and made memories." Well, for that, Ian, and I say this very tongue-in-cheek, it's very much a joke, but that deserves a ban, because we don't talk about that on this podcast because it holds very bad memories for all of us. Worst cup final ever. Right, move back up. So wish you all the best with your current season. Hopefully we'll be in the same league again one day, but that's you coming up and us not moving.
Go Quakers, go Quakers.
Yeah, something like that. Let's move swiftly back to all Mansfield Matters, Nick, and let's touch upon the injury to George Maris a little bit. What a blow that is for him. But if there was one area of the squad that you could afford to lose a player through injury, it was the midfield, wasn't it, ultimately? Yes.
Bring back Kieran Wallace. That's what I say. It's probably the only position where you lose one. It doesn't really make a massive amount of difference, albeit Maris is obviously a top tier player. He's brilliant, isn't he? He's one of our best players. But yeah, we've got obviously the main man behind me that way. He's available, isn't he? He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, we couldn't sell him.
A weekend. No, absolutely not. No one could afford to move the fan club. And they didn't have any buildings big enough, so they said, you know what, just don't sell him. Let him just be quietly the best player on the pitch, despite Craig watching a different game to everybody else. Then, fine, whatever. But no, I think, centre midfield is about the only position we can afford to lose. You got Bacchus, you've got, we've got Hiram Boateng, we've got Reed, we've got a few others in there, Quinny, Uncle Stephen, he can play there. I think it's probably about the only place we could, but, you don't want to lose good players, do you? Maris is top notch, unfortunately. I don't know how long he's out for. Obviously, none of us know, but it seems quite serious by the fact that they've not said how long he's going to be out for, which makes you think the worst, doesn't it?
For this, and I'm prepared to get hate for it. And do you know what? I hate myself for saying it, but I blame Alan Wilson because ever since he wanted to Giorgio Mauricio, George Maris just has not had the rub of the green. He scores a goal and it looked very much like an own goal, so Alan couldn't give it. All the midfielders gets finally gets a chance to play there, and then pulls up injured. It's Alan's fault.
There are rumours that when he injured himself, he just shouted "Alan" really loud on the pitch.
He did what, Al?
He did score away. So he scored away in an away match. It wasn't the end of the season. The last match against Barrow, weren't it Maris that scored?
Barrow.
Yes.
Just saying.
I don't know. There's something suspect there. One day
it will happen.
Hold on to it, because one day you will get to say Giorgio Mauricio. On that, quick side note, obviously, we've got 4 new players so far, potentially 5 if Quinn the Younger signs on the dotted line. Maybe more to come, who knows? What have you been practicing? New pronunciations, new ways of names this year? Get something a little bit, something to wipe extra out of our memory to bring something new in there.
Not really, Craig. No, we'll just see what transpires along the way and who else comes in, if anybody. But I think there will be another couple come through the door.
What's your Australian accent like?
Not very good, mate. Cobber.
That was Welsh. That was Welsh, wasn't it?
I did say it weren't very good.
I could have thought, Al, that you could have done, Keanu Bacchus in like Australian or something. No.
I think.
Thanks, you ding. It's Keanu Bacchus. I don't know.
I have to say, Alan, I don't envy you the start of any season, because especially in the close season where they don't even put numbers on the shirts, I had no idea who these players were. And it takes me till Christmas anyway to figure it all out, even when they've got the names and the numbers on the back. So I think hats off to you. And I'll tell you what, when somebody's got 3 first names, I'd get Fraser Clark Rigby cocked up good style.
Fraser Clark Rigby, who's he? Have we got a new signing? Do you mean Fraser Blake Tracy?
I didn't tell you it was a weakness.
Fraser Clark Rigby.
Do you know what?
3 players in one there, Clark.
I don't know about you, Jim, but I prefer Fraser Clark Rigby to Fraser Blake Tracy.
Nobody should go through life with 3 first names.
Especially one of a woman.
There you go. Right, we were going to turn our attention to club matters in a minute. Obviously, we've had some news today regarding away ticketing for the future and things like that. We're also going to talk a little bit about Bishop Street, because we had a little chat about that in the last episode, and some information we speculated on may have been a little bit wrong. So we're going to clear up now that based on some of the information which has come out this week. And we're going to have not one, but two features, new features, and the return of a classic. Don't go anywhere. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast. It's the show for the fans, by the fans. Why, Jim Evans? Why is it the show for the fans, by the fans?
Because Mansfield Matters.
So, wrong clip to play. You know, I got so excited about the return of podcast predictions. I pressed the podcast predictions jingle earlier and not the advertising jingle. But there you go. Welcome back to the Mansfield podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Joining me on the show tonight, if you've just joined us, on the phone, we've got Jim Evans, who was having technical problems earlier on, but his mobile phone, the old dog and bone, works quite well. Hello, Jim.
Hi, guys. You're right.
We've also got the man who was spotted outside McDonald's in Ollerton, was asked randomly for a selfie, of Nick of Mansfield Town Shirts fame. Do you want to talk us through that story, Nick?
Yeah, more than well. I was taking my little one to the McDonald's, just walking, and somebody pulled up on a bicycle, and said, "You are that shirt man," which is pretty standard greeting for anyone who sees my face and think he's something to do with shirts. And said, "Yeah, can I have a selfie?" I was like, "Well, you can, but no one's going to know who I am." So it's, just like you've got a photo with some bloke you've met outside the White Hart pub in Ollerton, but never mind. So there is some man going around somewhere on a bike with some fish and chips with a photo of me on his phone.
Genuine,
yeah.
What
more could you want?
Was he a member? Did you ask the immortal question though? And that is, yes, you can have a selfie, but are you a member of the Hiram Boateng fan club? Because if you're not, then you're gonna have to pay for it, right?
Apart from you, I take it for granted that they are, Craig. To be honest, it's one of those questions that you don't. It's by exception. You know what I mean? You have to opt out. You're automatically enrolled when you walk through the turnstile, and you have to physically opt out.
Unsubscribe.
Unfortunately. Yeah, well, Craig and Cam have unsubscribed, which is very unfortunate. But
remember too many things. Can only got so many eggs. You can't put them all in different baskets. You've got to spread them.
Absolutely not.
Nick's not the only one to get spotted this summer in the close season, is he?
No, I was up in Edinburgh outside the castle, and it was thronged with people, and I heard this chap shouting Clive, and he came over, and he obviously knew me through Mansfield Matters, and I'm ashamed to say that if he gave me his name, I've forgotten it. But he was very, very pleased to be associated with us, and he thought that we got some interesting people who appeared on the podcast. And he says, apart from you, so that summed it up. I mean, when I say you, he meant me, not you, Craig.
Oh, right, fair enough. I thought that was to get me then, but there you go.
No, he put me down as the daft old sod.
Right. Okay. So far, Alan, Nick had a selfie outside McDonald's. Clive's been accosted in Scotland. What's happened to you over the summer?
Well, again, a lot of people just keep coming and say, yeah. In fact, one gentleman yesterday, I was doing an assisted collection, put it on the back of the wagon, took the bin back up the yard, and the gentleman next door said, "Didn't you used to do the announcing at Stags?" I said, "Well, I still do, hopefully." Yeah, he said, "Didn't you?"
Yes. What have you heard?
I was starting to sweat a bit. Yeah, but there's a lot of people.
Can I just say, Craig?
Go on.
I was going to say, can I just say, it took us 45 minutes to get from the turnstile at Hucknall to where we were going to stand due to the sheer amount of people. I don't know if Alan knew any of these people, to be perfectly honest,
know some of them.
who were just going, "Hey up, Alan, I haven't seen you since last week. I haven't seen you last month, last year, insert duration of time." We moved 10 yards and then just stopped. And then we moved another 10 yards and stopped. And even when we'd stood still, people recognised him from the back. They were like, "Oh, it's Alan."
We don't talk
I was
about
like,
that before 9 o'clock, but
No, absolutely not. But I've never known anything like it, Craig. It was imagine what, that time Michael Jackson went to Harrods. It was a bit
Hey,
like
and
that.
we nearly
It was
ended up in
madness.
hospitality at Hucknall.
We nearly did.
Thanks to
with
you,
six,
Clive.
yeah, 6 biscuits
Well,
and a
I mean,
slice
I was
of
joking.
cake.
The woman on the turnstile thought I was being serious. She was going to whisk us through, fast track us through to the hospitality
I
suite.
know.
Anyway, when we got there, it's a small porter cabin with 2 tables in it and 2 plates of biscuits. So we didn't miss out on a great deal, I don't think.
Well,
Don't forget the Swiss roll.
Oh, sorry, some Swiss roll as well.
on the quality of biscuits to start off with, but Alan, you're recognised everywhere, and you've been recognised, Clive's been recognised, Nick's been recognised. Jim, anyone recognised you other than yourself in the mirror?
Not that I'm aware of.
You never know. It's more your voice, isn't it? Because people recognise you, don't they? And they look at you and then they wait for a response because they're so used to watching you on the live stream, aren't they?
Somebody's going to
I think what
recognise
happens
him
with
next
Jim is
week.
people spot him and then hide behind wheelie bins.
A few people come up to me at games, at home games, and said, "Oh, I saw you on the podcast." That's about the maximum of it. I mean,
You can ask no more, Jim. That's fame.
What I'm getting at is,
yeah.
what I'm getting at is everybody's been recognised this summer apart from me. What have I done in my close season? Been round to Allen's and fixed his printer.
What a wonderful job
Wow.
you've done, Craig.
What can I say? Right, let's move on, shall we, and talk more things. We've not done a podcast for a while. Bound to get some nonsense, aren't you? So let's turn our attention back to club matters, and let's start by picking up on a topic which we were talking about last time out, and that is, of course, the Bishop Street redevelopment. It's been announced in the last week or so that Sid Pepper has officially become a director of the club, with his sole purpose to help with the redevelopment of the Bishop Street stand. And the 3 phases have been announced as well. And I don't think we were far off, were we, when we were speculating?
No, I
No,
think
definitely. Oh, go on, Clive. Sorry.
I thought he was talking about the information that I'd heard from people who normally are fairly accurate. It very much mirrors this, that it would be in phases, and the first phase would be to open up some extra accommodation as soon as practically possible in the season in front of us. I think from what Sid was saying is their ambition was to do it earlier than they are now likely to be able to, because the demands by the Green Book or whatever it's called that specifies the size of the terrace or something. Seems a load of nonsense to me, but there you go.
Yeah, it's there's all to do with it's moved on and developed, hasn't it? The laws and regulations since it was last open. So it's probably like 0.5 millimetre too short or something daft like that. But anyway, the phases are as follows. Phase 1, which we anticipated anyway, was to refurbish the stand as is. Basically, just put seats in there and potentially look at putting a camera gantry back on top. Although for the time being, that is going to be in the director's box, I think, probably on a platform which just sits just above the director's heads and just low enough so it doesn't affect the press box behind. I remember the last time they put cameras in there and you couldn't see from the press box. It'd be interesting to see whether or not that restricts that. But anyway, that's not one I've got to worry about this season, so we'll move swiftly on. Phase 2 is going to be extending the Bishop Street stand towards the Quarry Lane end of the stadium by 4 years. So as anticipated, that's why that land has been cleared. And then phase 3, the intention is to build above the whole of the Bishop Street stand. So that would be the Bishop Street stand as is, plus the 4-bay extension, and add a 9-metre camera area and a 2 metres at either end, with the rest made up of 10 corporate boxes, access of which will be via an undercover stair tower, including toilets and a lift as well. So plenty of excitement in there, Nick, and something which we've wanted to see for a very long time. But as per, all of this sort of outlined phases and things like that, it ain't going to happen overnight. And I think we're probably now, because of the setback that we had, we're going to be looking probably towards early 2025 when fans are actually allowed back in the Bishop, and it will be away fans too.
Yeah, the working in construction as I do, it's there's always setbacks and things never quite go as you anticipate. And the stripping back is obviously the quickest bit, and then you find what you've got isn't quite what you thought you had, or doesn't comply with what you thought it did. So, I mean, it's exciting times, isn't it? It looks like a stand. That's the main thing. When you see the ground, it looks like we've got 4 stands now. The horrific advertising is gone. So, that's the main thing for me, is that it actually looks like a 4-sided ground again. And hopefully, by the end of this season, at some point, we'll have had fans in it, and then they'll move on to doing phases 2 and 3 when they're able to, and in a couple of seasons it'll all be finished. Hopefully,
disappointing though, isn't it, that for a little bit of red tape and a little bit of a rule or regulation here or there, that it's taken a little bit of a setback, because they were really pressing on with the development work, weren't they?
They were, but I think initially when they announced it, they said it'd be ready for the start of 25, 26, didn't they? And a lot of Nick says these things do take time. I think that the main thing is we're going to get it. I mean, at long last, we actually are going to get this thing sorted out. So, what's another year when we've been waiting, 10 years? So, it's encouraging, much better.
Yeah, fingers crossed that it all comes to fruition sooner rather than later. Let's move on and talk about another hot topic of discussion, Clive. And that is, of course, that earlier today at 5 o'clock tonight, the tickets for Barnsley away on the opening day of the season, the opening evening of the season, went on sale. We've secured them, so that's one tick in the box. But in future, it might not be so easy because of the point system, which has been sneakily, in my opinion, announced today. Blinken, you'll miss it if you don't read the full article, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be criticism of it, but the club's damned if it doesn't, damned if it doesn't, and they have to find some way of facilitating the benefit to the most loyal fans. And I think the point system is designed to do exactly that. And so, if somebody who's been to every game of the season then can't get the final game because of the priorities. I mean, I missed out on a couple of games last season simply because I didn't get online quick enough to capture one of the seats that were in short supply. But you put it down to experience. So given that I'd got enough, the point system would have put me fairly high up the priority list last time. I wouldn't have missed those 2 games had the point system been in place. At least I don't think I would have done. So I think there's pros and cons. But as I said, whatever they do, somebody's going to find criticism with it.
Well, I'm not here to try and stir the pot, although I think it's well worth debating. But first, let's go through the actual statement that the club have put out at the bottom of their article. I think, obviously, I think the club needed to get the information out within the first link separately, in my opinion, just so most fans could have a little bit of a read of it, because I think you tend to scan articles. The cooling fan back on. You tend to scan things like that and not read it all the way through. So for the avoidance of doubt, let's read the statement that the club put out earlier in regards to the new system. And it is as follows. For our Sky Bet League One match away at Lincoln City on Saturday, the 24th of August, the club will be implementing a new point system which will offer a fair framework for the club to sell tickets for high-demand games. In introducing the scheme, we are keen to ensure that the past support has been acknowledged and indeed rewarded. Fans will then be able to gather more points going forward through attending away games. The system will be designed to ensure that supporters who have ardently travelled away in recent seasons are rewarded for their support. And then there's further information, which is as follows. The club has analysed and will take into consideration purchase of away tickets over the previous 3 seasons. An initial small allocation of points will be given to a number of fans, both season ticket holders and non-season ticket holders who have purchased tickets for the largest quantity of games throughout the relevant period. So that will, of course, be the previous 3 seasons and any away games going forward. Season ticket holders will receive a slight advantage within this initial allocation. Points will then be accrued on future purchases of away tickets at a rate of 1 point per game to allow fair opportunity for newer fans. Tickets will be allocated as normal, 1 ticket per season ticket holder ahead of each fixture. The club will confirm the point requirement to purchase a different release period at different release periods. These will vary based on the allocation that we're given and the expected demand for each game. The process won't always guarantee a ticket, but will aim to provide greater opportunity for those that travel most frequently. Now, again, I'm not trying to stir the pot at all. I'm just going to use you as an example, Alan. I know that you'll give a fair and honest answer, and it'll be a humble answer as well, knowing you. However, you are not a season holder at the club. You are a stalwart of the club, been there for so many years now. Therefore, you have no history of purchasing tickets to away games. You don't go to many as it is. Let's be fair. Let's be fair about that. But in terms of this new ticketing system, you would be at the very bottom of the pile based on that. Is that fair?
I suppose in a way it is fair, to accommodate all the people that do go week in, week out. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I go as much as I can when I can. I can't always afford to do it. I'm not in that luxurious position. But the thing is, if and when I'm able to get a ticket and it's one that I want to go to, or, I'm available at the time, with money allowing, I'll look forward to going if I can get one. But if I can't, if other people have beat me to it to go week in, week out, so be it. I'm a little bit like what Clive said, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. They've implemented something. And I just hope, for the Stags fans, for the loyal Stags fans and the ones that's coming through, I just hope it works.
Nick, I would say you're a moderate follower of away games. Again, like Alan, you go when you can, when family commitments and work commitments allow. What's your views on this ticketing point system?
I quite agree with you. I think I went to 8 last year, so I'd probably be in the lower middle half, maybe, of people who went to away games. But I think it's right. I've seen, the people you see on a bus who go every away game, they spend the hard-earned money, they go to places that I wouldn't dream of going to, deserve some sort of acknowledgement, and arguably they probably shouldn't miss out on tickets if they've, especially when you go back 3 years and we've not always been massively successful. I agree with it. I think it's a good initiative, especially for the games that are going to be close in terms of allocation. 4,000 at Barnsley, there isn't probably a need to do this, but like the Lincoln game and maybe some others where they've got a small allocation, then it's, I've got no problem with it. And similar to Alan, if I miss out because somebody who's been to every away game last season gets a ticket over me, then that's fair enough. It's on me to go to more games, I guess.
For a minute, if I may, and it's a conversation I was having earlier on. Let's say, for example, we as a group all want to go to an away game. Clive is in charge of getting the tickets, as he usually does. He does it superbly well. However, we want to go as a group and we want to ensure that we've all got tickets. And by getting tickets, usually by as one, you would get your ticket sat next to each other and therefore allow us to go as a group. However, Clive's been to all the games and therefore has a high chance of, he's got a high point allocation. Alan is the complete opposite. Nick's somewhere in the middle. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. You're probably the bottom as well. It makes it a little bit more difficult, doesn't it, to try and ensure that you can get all group tickets the same. But I guess that's maybe just a downside to having to do it in this way.
Yeah, I mean, most away games you go to, you can, once you're through the turnstile, you can usually just pretty much sit where you want. So it probably wouldn't be an issue 95% of the time. But if they were sticklers for it, they said, no, you got to sit in the seat. Yeah, it's just the opportunity cost of fair, logic of being fair, isn't it? Well, my gripe with it is, Craig, is, and talking to fans of other clubs at work, they'll say that, because most clubs have got this in place, is you find that the same 2,000 or 3,000 fans who were at the top of the list end up monopolising the tickets forever. So you'll end up, no one else will ever really, or very rarely, be able to get an away ticket. And you'll have times where some of those fans who normally go every week, there'll be a game where they weren't going to go, but they'll buy a ticket anyway just to keep their points tally high. That I don't like. But I mean, as far as we're concerned, as Mansfield Matters, our allocations for most away games will be such that most people who want a ticket will be able to get one anyway. But I can see why they've done it, but there are significant, definite drawbacks and things about it I don't like.
I can take Jim's point there, Nick, about feeling like you've got to buy a ticket for buying a ticket's sake to keep your points up. That's probably the only sort of to it, isn't it? The fact that you might feel additional peer pressure to keep your ticket score high just in case.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's definitely a drawback. I mean, I don't know how visible this point system's going to be. As in, is it going to be obvious how many points you've got? They're not going to tell you how many points you need until the game comes up. So maybe that might deter people a little bit. But you are right. People will just buy tickets, I guess for the sake of it. But I suppose it's no different to needing to buy, a game before, like we have in the FA Cup sometimes, where you have to buy a second round game to get a third round ticket, something like that. But I suppose I don't see how, if you're going to have a small allocation to make it fair, other than a lottery, this is probably the only way you can do it, isn't it? But like Jim says, I do agree it is a drawback. But I suppose another argument could be what was wrong with the lottery in the first place. You either got one or you didn't. There's nothing wrong with that really either. I know it doesn't reward anybody, but at least then everyone's got an equal chance, haven't they, of getting one? That's the only thing. But it's nice to be the point where Mansfield need to have a point system. You wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. We've never needed a point system for home games, let alone away games.
It's a progression, Clive, isn't it, really? Some people won't like it, some people will like it. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But it is just a sign of the times, as is, and we'll see this more as the season goes on, the numbers that come next to away tickets, i.e. pricing, because we are now at a higher level.
Yeah, I think there's three factors here. One is for home games, our capacity is too small for the league we're now in. So there's always going to be pressure on getting home tickets. And obviously season ticket holders have got that privilege of guarantee. And at this point, I think the club should be brighter and smarter, as indeed some clubs do, which is to allow for people who've got season tickets that can't get to the game to hand them back to the club to be sold to another fan. So there isn't an empty seat there on that occasion. But that's another story. And then away games, we're on a crest of a wave. So everybody and his brother wants to go to away games. It's not that long ago. I mean, Jim and I went down to Swindon. There was about 400 of us went to that game. The reality is we've got a good clamour at the moment because we've had an upwardly mobile team. If we struggle this year, some of the diehards will die and they won't be that bothered about clamouring for tickets. I think the pressure will come off. But there will still be the marquee games, the ones that everybody wants to go to. And Lincoln is one because it's nearby. And that's the problem because they haven't got a huge ground either. So the allocation of away tickets for Lincoln is not much more than about 1,300, something like that. So we're never going to have enough for that, whatever system you deploy. But I don't think Mansfield Town staff and management have invented this ticketing scheme, this point system. It's obviously one that the K-Ticket organisation are doing elsewhere, and they've just borrowed it. And I don't blame them for trying something. Why reinvent the wheel when somebody else has already got one?
Yeah, I have to say, will be knowing sort of how these sort of packages and stuff work. It will be another package that the club have bought as part of their purchase of the K-ticketing system. So it's a good progression. It'd be interesting to see how it works. It would be nice to maybe, I think in the future we might see something with home games there as well. But just to clear up the question from Ben in the comments, is the point system historical or a fresh slate from this coming season? It's historical based on the data from the last 3 seasons. So that's the Wembley season onwards. I don't know how the points are going to work. Nobody does at the minute. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more clarity from the club in the future as well. That's all we've got time for on that particular subject. Very briefly, Clive, I want to touch upon another subject this week. And that is that there's been a number of local businesses and online stores and maybe some sort of people that do stuff from home that have posted in the Stags group saying that they've only got until this Friday to sell any merchandise they've got with the club badge on it because it appears that copyright letters and things have been sent. It's another catch-22 situation, isn't it? Because Castor, who are the official merchandise and club kit provider, etc., have a range of merchandise. Some of it's all right, some of it's very questionable, but it's not a big range. Whereas some local businesses have used their imagination really, really well and created some very, very good stuff, but now are prohibited from selling it because of the with Castor.
Yeah, the thing is that the club's imagery and its logos and etc. are the property of the club or the property of Castor in this case, and they've every legal right to protect that. And if someone is marketing product with those brands and images on without permission of the club, they are in breach of the law. And Castor or Mansfield Town Football Club, if they choose to, if it comes to it, can prosecute them. Now, that's the fact. It's also a fact that some of those people who are doing these products have never even attempted to get permission. They've just taken a flyer, and that's commercialism for you. The club clearly don't want anybody else doing them, which is the bit. That's what sticks in my throat more than anything. Is the club doesn't want anybody else to do them, but doesn't seem interested in doing them themselves. So there's an enormous demand for product that nobody is being able to fulfil legally. And so they're missing a trick. The club needs all the money it can garner. Realistically, Castor have got nothing to worry about in terms of the shirts, because I don't think any of our local traders are trying to replicate the shirts. If they did, they'd do them better. But I think the reality is there's always going to be knockoff merchants where shirts are concerned. That's nothing to do with our club. That's an international problem. But it's the knickknacks and it's the peripheral stuff, and it's the things that you like to buy as an impulse gift on match day, and for gifts and for presents and all the rest of it. We do that appallingly badly. We have a club shop which is embarrassingly inadequate, and that's not a criticism of the staff, by the way. They do what they can. But I remember when Mr. Sharp launched the Castor News, he was great. He was full of the fact that they were going to take over our club shop operation. They were going to do the shop out properly. It was going to reflect the aspirations of our football club and the fans that support the football club. None of that has happened. If anything, we've gone backward.
Yeah, we have. Add on to the back of that, Nick, as well. Castor do some all right stuff, like I say, but it's very limited in what they do. They've got a generic product range which they whack a badge on. It's the same design for every single club. I'm going to single a business out here, and I've got no affinity with this business whatsoever, other than how we've had a few dealings with them in the past, and this is just based on my opinion, as is everything that is on this show. It's all our views, etc., etc., etc. Nana Print, they were brilliant. They gave us some branded mirrors for a live event we did a while ago as prizes. They were really, really good. It had the Stags badge on, nice black frame with a mirror. It was good quality. Like Clive said, I don't want a kid's water bottle. I don't want a keyring. Sometimes I want something bespoke and personal with the current badge on it, because it looks good. And I think that in Castor doing what they've done, if it is indeed Castor, we don't know whether it's them or the club, in what's happened, they've really cut off the options for fans to get something memorable and treasured. And at the same time, and this is the most important bit, and this is the bit that frustrates me the most, support local businesses, support the high street.
Yeah, I can see it on both sides. I mean, the crux of the matter is if you haven't asked for the permission, you've got no leg to stand on. If you've asked for it and the club have not got back to you, or the club have said no, then to be fair, I don't think the club should be saying no. I think the club should be saying, yes, sell what you want and I'll take a cut of it. There's no reason why they can't do that, unless it comes from Castor, at which point they would probably say no. But if it's just between, Nana's Gifts or whoever and the club, then I don't see why the club would say no. But if you haven't asked permission, you can't do it. It's as simple as that.
Nick, isn't it as simple as Mansfield Town Football Club Limited has entered into an exclusivity contract with a single supplier, Castor?
Essentially, yeah.
And if that's the case, they are locked out of acting more flexibly than things that we would like 100%. Them to do. They're locked away from doing, and there's not the people on the ground at the football club that wants to take a fight on either.
No, I think that the crux of it is that Castor or whoever don't supply the products that these companies do, which is frustrating because then the fans miss out. And the only people really who lose out is the fans and obviously the owners of these businesses. But We don't know whether they've asked permission in the first place, but if they have and the club could, then I would like to see the club do it, because why not? You take money that you wouldn't have had in the first place, because people are going to buy these things. It's extra money. They're not printing them on toilet roll. You know what I mean? It's going on good quality product. As long as you link up with the right businesses and maybe not a massive Mansfield Town suitcase, then fine. Just link up with good, solid businesses that people like and use them and take a cream of the profit. But if they haven't asked, they haven't got a leg to stand on. I suppose that's the only.
You would like to use the Mansfield Matters trademark, then you can. Just email me, mtfcmatters@gmail.com, and be prepared to pay at least £4 million for the privilege. Right, let's move swiftly on, shall we? Gentlemen, thanks so much for all your opinions on all things Mansfield Town tonight. Obviously, we are now in Series 8 of the podcast. It's still going strong, and we'll be back week in, week out. We'll take a break next week, and then we'll be back the week after that. We try and sort of space it out during pre-season. But what we will be doing, Alan, during the season is introducing 2 new features. They won't both take place each week. They will be in rotation. One is all to do with a conversation we've been having in the group chat since the end of last season, and a certain Clive Parkin and his booking. The other is a little bit more serious. It's called The Big Question. Now, let me explain about The Big Question to you. When we do The Big Question, it is a question that's been on our lips. Nothing to do with the game, because we always talk in the first half of the game about the game specifically. It's something we could have seen on social media. It's something we overheard. It's something we could be wanting to discuss about off the pitch matters. It can be silly or serious, and I'm going to give you an example by setting the first big question. The idea is, as a group, we try and find the answer. So the very first big question is, how did Aaron Lewis get through airport security with an 80s mullet and a moustache which makes him look like he was from a certain video without getting searched? Have we got an answer to the big question? The big question is, for all of you, it's a yes or no answer. Did Aaron Lewis get stopped by airport security? Alan Wilson?
No.
Clive Parkin?
Not a clue.
Nick of Town Shirts fame?
Because they were flying Ryanair, and I've seen the sort of delinquents that fly Ryanair, I would say he's probably in amongst similar characters, so
Jim,
maybe not.
Did Aaron Lewis get searched?
No, I think they'd have stopped Flinty, Sawler. Everyone picks on tall people, don't they?
And the second part of the big question is, going into the season with Aaron Lewis's mullet and moustache, do we need to team up with an official partner that's a barber's and get him a fashionable haircut? Let's go the opposite way around. Let's start with Jim.
Team up with a firm that makes paper bags and put a paper bag over his head, for God's sake.
That's a bit cruel, isn't it?
Nick?
I'd pay. Yeah, we should all contribute to his haircut. No problem.
I like it. Clive?
I feel rather guilty about this, because he actually came with his young lady. He came and spoke to us at the pre-season game at Hucknall Town, and he was very friendly. We had the opportunity then to tell him how ridiculous his moustache was, and we didn't do it. I'm ashamed of myself.
Alan, the final decision lies with you. Aaron Lewis haircut, yes or no?
I'll just name 4 words, each to his own.
On the ways. And there concludes the big question. Next time round, if you're at home, this is what we want to do, by the way. We don't necessarily want it to be us that's asking the big question. We want you guys at home to ask the big question. You can send it in an email, mtfcmatters@gmail.com. You can DM us on Facebook or on Twitter, or you can just ask it and, just drop us a message during the week or whatever. Or you can send a little video clip of yourself asking the big question, and send it to mtfcmatters@gmail.com. We'll play it on the show and we'll ask it out. So we want your big question. It can be serious or it can be silly. But there concludes the big question this week. On now to a brand new feature. I have a question. It's not a big question. The question is it a spoon? Is it a fork? Is it an animal that can talk? Kit. It's Craig's bucket. So right here, I have a bucket. So a little bit of context for you. For whatever reason, Clive in the close season kept talking about his bucket I've still got no idea what you were talking about, Clive.
I'm very proud of my bucket.
And Clive seemed to have numerous items in his bucket throughout every single conversation. He was asking if new signings required a bucket, whether or not their moustache cream was in there. I don't know. Everything seems to be in Clive's bucket. Well, in Craig's bucket, there is an object, and it's your job to try and guess the object by asking a series of questions, of which I can only answer yes, no, or maybe. You have 3 questions each before you then must guess what the object is. If you guess correctly what the object is, you will win a point, and at the end of the season, somebody will win Craig's bucket. Jim, are you under the rules? Are you still there, Jim?
I'm still there. Yeah, I think I understand. Yeah.
There we go. Mick, got the rules?
I'm hoping that it's the last shred of decency for this podcast in there. I really do.
What?
Don't let it out of the bucket, please.
I'm hoping it's
That's all
Cam.
we've got.
Put a lid on it.
Alan?
Yes, I understand totally, Craig.
Okay, so you've got 3 questions and 3 questions each. We're going to go in the following order. It's going to be Jim, Nick, Clive, then Alan. In that way, 3 questions each. Jim, you are up first. I can only answer yes, no, or maybe. There is an item in my bucket. What's in Craig's bucket?
Right. Is it adult themed?
No.
Would it hurt if you
Yes.
sat on it?
Is it edible?
No.
Has it got a peculiar smell?
Yes.
It is Cam.
I really hope someone turns on with no context to this. I really hope someone just turns the podcast on. Somebody's put, is it hard in the questions? Alan's now asking if it's got a particular smell, and I'm asking if it's This is what people would pay for.
Series 8. Jim, second question to you.
Can you spray it?
No.
Is it in any way Mansfield Town
Loosely,
related?
yes.
Is it bigger than a fridge?
How big do you think my bucket is? No.
It's a waste
Well,
of
no,
a question,
because
Clive.
it's
That.
a figurative thing. It
Criminal.
doesn't actually have to be in the bucket, does it?
Nice.
Is it Argentina?
Yeah, I think it does.
Alan, next question to you.
My second question, does it have a point system?
Is it a hedgehog, Alan?
You know what? Pedantically, it does.
Thank you.
Jim, last question to you.
Is it a piece of paper, something on paper?
No. Nick, last question to you.
Is it something that you found on your desk
Yes.
before you did the podcast?
Yes, it is. Clive,
Is it readily available in the shops?
if you go to the right sort of shop, yes, it is.
Oh, it's kinky underwear.
One of them shops, Clive.
Another pedantic
One of them.
for you.
One of them shops just off the A1.
Alan,
Can you rip it?
Still on kinky underwear here, aren't we?
Well, I did
What was Alan's question? What does it smell like? Is it hard? And can you
say it was hard.
Unbelievable.
I said about the point system. Can you rip it, Craig?
cannot. Right, you've had all your questions. So now I'm going to ask you one question only. I'm going to ask you all. I'll reveal the answer afterwards. Get your guesses in. Jim Evans, what's in Craig's bucket?
Your bell.
I beg your pardon.
Nick, what's in Craig's bucket?
I hope it's not that. Oh God, a pen.
Clive, what's in Craig's bucket?
A microphone.
Alan, what's in Craig's bucket?
I think it's a bar of soap.
Well, I can tell you, I didn't.
Where's that come from?
Is it hard? Is it lubricant? Oh, boy, let's not go there. Is it ripple? I don't know. I can tell you, I did not think that this would happen. But one of you has guessed the correct answer to what's in Craig's bucket. Is it a spoon? Is it a fork? Is it an animal that can talk? Ah, fuck it. There's a microphone in Craig's bucket.
Hey! Do I get to tell you my rhyme about a bucket?
Has it
No.
got an owl in it?
It's not got a
No.
hole in it.
It's a limerick.
Right.
Come on then, Clive.
Whoa,
No.
whoa. Let me finish the feature first.
Oh, all right then.
But, come on. Clive, you have officially got the first point on what's in Craig's bucket. Ah, fuck it. Tell me your limerick. Now.
Mary had a little lamb. She kept it in a bucket. But every time she let it
No.
out,
Yeah, we don't need to finish at the end of that limerick, do we? Let's move on.
to kiss it.
Jim, what do you make of the what's in Craig's bucket feature?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Jolly good.
Yeah.
He's easily pleased, is Jim.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. I'm not sure what to make of it, Craig. To be honest, I'm a bit blown away. I'm amazed that Alan thought it was a bar of soap. That's done me.
Alan, you a fan of the bucket feature?
Oh, I think it's got legs, and I think it will carry on and go forward.
No more guesses, Alan.
I like the name of it.
Now,
I like
know what it
more
is
bucket,
already.
It's in the bucket. I like that.
Yeah, a jingle will be coming very, very soon indeed. And
Oh.
speaking of jingles, go on. I know you've all been desperate to hear it. Here we go. So will they win, lose or draw? And what will be the score? It's the guessing game that brings you zero fame. But to be the best, you must outguess the rest. So will they win, lose or draw? And what will be the score? In the League or Cup, you just make it up. Because they're just works of fictions. It's podcast predictions. Will they win, lose or draw? I know you've all been waiting for it. Podcast predictions will return for the season, and our podcast predictions guru Ben will be doing all the maths and things again. And this year he has had the whole say on how the competition is going to work. So none of you lot can moan that this is a Craig thing. So these are the rules for podcast for the new season. We'll recap them again in the coming weeks, but we just thought we'd bring them to you at the end of the show, and that is as follows. Mansfield Matters Prediction League for the new 24-25. Again, it will follow a similar, the same format as last year in terms of you choose whether Mansfield will win, lose, or draw, and if you get that correct, you earn 2 points. You will also predict how many goals Mansfield will score, which earns you 4 points if you get it correct. And you will also predict how many goals the opposition score, which will also score you 4 points. If a score is correct, then a bonus 5 points will be added to make 15 points for a correct score. And this year, rather than man of the match, because we had a few issues last year with where we were getting that information from and who was selecting it and things like that, you may have noticed that the EFL have launched a new EFL Fantasy League, very similar to like the Premier League one. We're going to use that concept, but you will pick a Mansfield Fantasy captain, and this is how that will score. So you will pick a player. So I, for example, will say that Mansfield will beat Barnsley by 2-1, and my fantasy player for that game will be Davis Keeler-Dunn. If my player, Davis Keeler-Dunn, plays up to 59 minutes or over, I will get 1 additional point. So up to 59 minutes is 1 point. 60 minutes or over is 2 points. If Davis Keeler-Dunn gets an assist, that's 3 points. If he scores a hat-trick, that's 5 points. If he misses a penalty, this is where it gets interesting, you lose 3 points. If he's sent off, you lose 3 points. And if he gets booked, you lose a point as well. If you choose a goalkeeper, for every 3 saves, you'll get 2 points. For a penalty save, you'll get 3 points as well. There's lots of other different permutations depending on their position. We'll go through them at the start of the season, but you will choose this year a fantasy player, and if your player doesn't play, you will lose 5 points from your Mansfield Matters score. Clive, I know you're trying to take it all in and compute it.
Can you just repeat that, Craig?
Trying to take it all and compute it. I'll go through the rules again on the next show, don't worry.
You lost me when you said I've got to nominate a fancy player. We ain't got any fancy players.
Fantasy.
Can I suggest you stick it in your bucket?
You can, but it's not my stipulations. I quite like it, Nick. It's a little bit different. And I have to say again, Ben, who does our predictions, he has chosen it, not me. I'm not getting involved.
Lovely.
As long as I can pick a player at 1 minute to 2 and forget about it for a week, and somebody else does the
lovely. Well
scoring,
done,
I'm
Ben.
all right.
Yes, you can.
Fine.
Tormenting this old head
I'm
of mine.
fine by that.
Yeah. There will also be a little bit of a change in this season, Alan, by virtue of the fact of we will put all the games on at the start of each month, and up until 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff, you can enter as many times as you like. So if you hear that maybe Davies Keeler, you've done your prediction on the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday, Nigel Clough says that Davies Keeler-Dunn's injured and isn't playing Saturday, you can change your player and change your prediction accordingly. What do you think of that?
Certainly different. It'll take a few weeks to get used to, I think, but once you're into it, it should.
Actually, it favours people like me who are retired because we'll have the time to do it. Whereas anybody who's got a job to hold down, I'll never find time to do this.
Listen, it's all down to Ben and things like that. Jim, you've been listening to that. What do you make of the rules and the gameplay?
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. It will become clear, and I will explain it in further detail on the next Mansfield Matters podcast, way ahead of the season. And you'll be able to read the rules on a brand new Mansfield Matters website coming very, very soon. That is all I will say on that. Obviously, we have no podcast predictions to do this week, but let's finish on one, Alan, and that is are you there Saturday? Or is it
I'm unavailable Saturday.
So we might have an American in the PA box. You never know. Then maybe the guy that did the commentary Tuesday night. We'll wait and see. But we're back at One Call Stadium on Saturday as the Stags take on Oxford United in the pre-season friendly. Alan, is this as close a representation as we're going to get in terms of how close we are to being able to compete in League One next season, given the opposition?
It's hard to say, Craig, to be fair, because it is a friendly at the end of the day. But I would imagine the first 11 that he puts out, they're the ones that are going to get the 70 minutes.
Clive, obviously, Oxford promoted via the playoffs last year, won the playoffs in League One. Similar side to ourselves, could be a really good indication of how far we are away from it.
Yeah, it's a sensible test.
There we go. Doesn't he say anything else, Nick? Anything to add to what Clive's statement said there?
A man of very few but very wise words. He's paid me a £5 note for that. Yeah, be a good game. A friend who's an Oxford supporter, he said that he didn't anticipate them being as high up as they were, and they're not a fluke certainly by any means, but they finished higher than they thought they might. So yeah, if they're a sort of mid to high table League One team last season, then it's an ideal test. They've signed some players as well, so be keen to see what it's like. I'll be there, I think. So yeah, should be a decent friendly. Better than playing somebody miles away in a few leagues above who we're never going to play again. So yeah, I think it's a good test, albeit not very exciting.
Absolutely. Right, Jim, final word from you. Oxford at home on Saturday. Are you just looking forward to getting back to the mill?
Yeah, it's nice to be back at home, isn't it? On a grass, hopefully, that's the right length. And, we beat some future Premier League players probably on Portugal up yesterday, so nothing to worry about. It's not a true representation of what teams do in the proper season, so I think it's just fitness for people in it. But main thing is just be nice to be back at home. Yeah, back in the old seat.
Well, you might not be back in the old seat, though, on Saturday, because I think they're only going to open the lower, aren't they, depending on numbers, unless they've announced they're going to open the upper today.
I think it's open. The upper.
Yeah, I think you can. I looked earlier. You can buy
great.
tickets for
Well,
both,
brilliant,
Craig.
then,
So.
I'll be back
Are
in
they
the-
holding season ticket seats for them?
I wouldn't have thought so.
I wouldn't have thought so.
I
No.
think it's 2 blocks open on the upper tier.
Let me see if I can find the latest information on the Oxford game whilst we're still here, whilst we're still there. Is it on the main page? No, it's probably not going to be, is it? I can't find it, so go on mansfieldtown.net and you'll find out all about it. And whatever happens, whether you can sit in the upper, lower, or you can sit on a upside down helmet in the Bishop Street stand. Just get yourself to One Call Stadium on Saturday and cheer on the Stags. That is all we've got time for tonight. Thank.
I have just checked,
It is
Craig.
only
It is 2 blocks.
So
Q and P are the
as
only 2 open
expected.
in the upper.
So there we go. Jim, we'll liaise and we'll find each other. I'm sure we will. Look forward to seeing you all on Saturday if you're there, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next podcast. My thanks to Alan Wilson, to Nick of Mansfield Town fame, to Clive, and to Jim, who's joined us on the phone as well, and to you guys at home as well. If this is the first time you've watched us, please do keep coming back. We're on Spotify if you want to listen to the audio version of this. We're on all your podcast apps, and we will be live every week during the season. Check us out on all things social media. We're at MTFC Matters. And if you're a long-time viewer, then all I can say is welcome back. So there you have it. It's minutes that matters. And we've got nearly 90 of them in the tank for the podcast tonight. My thanks to all of the Mansfield Matters podcast panel for joining us. Really appreciate your time this evening. Make sure you come back again in the future as we gear towards Sky Bet League One. The big season opener tickets are on sale now. Go and get them and back the Stags in Barnsley as we begin a brand new adventure. First, though, a home game against Oxford and a trip to Alfreton as pre-season continues. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Good night.